We have 6 speakers, each bringing us one concept in just 5 minutes, so I'm not going to waste any time. Please welcome Ben, and he's going to be telling us about how your music sounds too good.
Thank you, Rad. Hello, highscore. I'm Ben Houghton. I'm a freelance composer and audio designer. Now, let's see if the technology is going to work for me. The thing buzzed in my hand.
It's okay, we won't count this to your 5 minutes.
Yes, we will. Oh, okay, that looks promising. We've got a bit of feedback, but we'll persevere. So I'm going to talk to you today about umami. Now, this is a borrowed word we've borrowed from Japanese, and it's roughly translated into deliciousness or a pleasant, savory taste. But I want to tell you how adding something a little bit funky or maybe even fermented, something a bit bad into your music can actually create some really unique results and add a heap of character to what you're doing. So let's talk about the tools that we all know and love. And there's in today's digital composition world, there are certain go-to sounds that are just fantastic for quick writing, quick drafting. In fact, they sound amazing straight out of the box. And the issue is, if we're all using the same sounds, eventually we all start to sound the same. So how about adding a bit of experimentation to your writing process, to your creative process, and finding ways to sound unique? So this might mean pulling out an instrument that you're good at and recording it. This might mean recording an instrument you're bad at, or recording a bad instrument, or even going as far as building your own instruments, making your own sounds, playing with effects, just playing with sound, adding experimentation to your process. So I'm going to show you an example from a project I've been working on. This is in early development. There's a little video clip that's not really related. It's just a prompt, something I use as a writing prompt. But let's start with the classic. This is a string ensemble patch, so it's a beautifully pristine recording of an orchestral string section. And I've written a little melody over it, but some moody strings going on. They sound lovely. Do they sound interesting and unique? I'm going to argue no, they don't. Now, I'm a sax player. I don't play violin. So you might need to cover your ears. Thank you, that's been my presentation. Now, if you're going to commit a sin, keep going with that thought. Start layering, just push on it. So this is, now can I play a violin in tune? No, but use your tuner, your software, process it until it sounds like something. All right, we're getting somewhere. Some of those imperfections and blemishes are starting to combine together to actually do something. And what's the solution to all audio problems? Yes, it's reverb. Let's go. All right, so let's keep experimenting. My mum gave me a ukulele 10 years ago. Have I learned to play it? No. Can I make a sound with it? Yes. All right, thank you, Mum. All right, let's revisit our ensemble patch. I mean, it's lovely. There's the terrible violins. And let's just simply mute the whole ensemble patch. And suddenly we've arrived in a whole new place than we started. And we don't need to sound the same anymore.
30
So,
seconds.
putting it all together. So the idea is just play with sound, experiment, and create your own sounds, and just see where it leads you. Add a little bit of something terrible, and it might take you somewhere. All right, so go out and find that umami flavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Just a quick reminder that there will be a Q&A at the end of this session for all of our speakers. So if you want to put anything in Slido, they will get to that at the end. But right now, here is Broghan Blackshaw with This Is a Working Title.
Greets from New Zealand. My name is Broghan, and I am a composer and sound designer for a company called Pickpock in Wellington. And just before I start, I just want to say thank you to everybody who organised this event. It's pretty fantastic to be here, and cheers a whole bunch. Does anyone in the audience really struggle when it comes to finding inspiration for your lyrics? Yeah. Is anyone a singer-songwriter in here? Cool, so we got lots here, fantastic. I was a bit worried that I'd pick this tip and it might be a bit oddly specific for a lot of you, but today I'm going to talk about using working titles to inspire and inform your lyrics. And some of these tips that I'm going to give you, they're not necessarily going to pertain to every single working title, but you should be able to combo them up or choose at least one, which will fit your unique working title situation. If you are a producer in this room, I'm not a betting woman, but I'm going to bet $5 dues that you've got like 15 to 17 rando demos stashed in a folder somewhere on your desktop, right? And you probably haven't touched them for 4 or 5 months. So how do you know what the music sounds like underneath? Well, we give it a working title, as opposed to just demo 1 to 15. Often we receive compositions to write on, or we've written compositions that have a specific vibe. And quite often the working title can accidentally capture this quite well. So that's one reason why we might choose to make a working title. And the other one is that working titles are often used to describe the sound of the music so as to be able to differentiate a lot of different demos from one another, which I've just said. But how is that helpful if you've got something like Whomping Bass Demo 2, as opposed to some more beautiful, metaphorical kind of title like Only in My Dreams? Well, we can apply some different techniques to these and some different little cues to get you started so that you can use that working title and take the essence of what the track sounds like and then give yourself a little prompt for some lyrics that would go well with the emotions that that demo is supposed to evoke, that theme that the demo evokes. So here's a couple of ways to use a working title to inspire hook lyrics. The top one is my least favourite, by the way. I don't know why I put that first. But if you map syllables around your working title, so say you've got, for example, Fat Whomping Bass Demo 1, Only in My Dreams and More. I'm just riffing here, but you get the idea. You can map syllables around your working title and then try and create a hook or a piece of lyrics that will fit that syllable map. You could loosely apply a metaphorical theme to the working title and build lyrics with it. So a good example of this might be that I once had a demo which was called like In Memoriam Dream Bells 2 from Omnisphere. So I took one of the words out of it and then I called it Only in My Dreams. And that was, now you have a place from which you can start building lyrics. Perhaps this tune is about unrequited love. Perhaps this tune is about ambition. You can also improvise melodic shapes using words from your working title. And especially if you have one that's more like Only in My Dreams and less Fat Bass Whomping 2, that one might work particularly well for you. And improvising melodic shapes can help you come up with a really interesting chorus hook as well. Improvise a bunch of different shapes. Just record yourself, use your working title, and then just improvise a whole lot of different melodies based on that one working title. And you can see which bits you like, get rid of lyrics that you don't like, or bits of melody that you don't like. You can also compose a line that might follow or precede the working title, and this is particularly useful if you have like a little piece of text, a nice descriptive, verbally descriptive title. You can also take one word from the working title and create a theme for the lyrics, or if you want to as well, this is just an extra freebie tip, pair the highest note in your chorus or your hook that you've written using any of these prompts with your most meaningful lyric. It just gets you extra purchase out of your beautiful melody and the beautiful hook that you have written. Anyway, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but that has been my tip, and I hope that you guys find it useful. Give it a try if you get a working title with a particularly interesting working title from a producer that you work with, or if you write one yourself. Give some of these a crack, and I hope that it can help to inspire some really cool, meaningful lyrics for you guys. Cheers.
That's all right. I'll just click stuff until it... Thank you. Also, the working title, great band. Now we are going to hear from Fernando Pepe about building trust.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for being here. I am from Brazil, so it was a long journey to be here, but I'm excited. So the topic that I want to cover is building trust, and why I think building trust is important. It's part of a relationship that we have with developers, and and when we start to work with the developers, we start to building trust over time, but I think that is a few tips that I learned in my experience that can help us to achieve that early on the process of working with games. And just a little presentation, I am audio lead at Wildlife Studio in Brazil. It's a mobile game company. We have 7 studios across the globe, and we need to deliver sounds and coding and implementing for all these studios. And externally, I have Moonsailor with a few friends, and we work on clients as well. And work with these clients and different cultures, different studios, different ways of developing games. I find that technology can be our help and support you to start building this trust. And why I think that? I think everyone, when they ask us to create a sound for a game or composing music for the game, they expect us to deliver that. But nowadays, it's more common for them to ask us to help to build the systems into the game. And when we have this technical knowledge, it's easier for us to talk. It's a different language that we have with developers. And when we start to have this language, this technicality, it's easier to be more close to developers. We have more room to apply the ideas that we are thinking of, because they let us, they rely more on us to apply what we think that is good for the game. And that can help to building trust, helping us to create a better soundscape. And what I mean about technology, it's understanding more how we can create the systems, the audio systems, the music systems, the dynamic of the game. And part of this, one of the tips that I give is try to understand a little more about middlewares. You don't need to do everything, but if you understand a little bit how the process works, it's easier to communicate with the developers. It's easier to pass. You grab more trust because you pass the information that they need to apply in the game, because normally they don't know how to create the systems. We are presenting ideas, and we present ideas and we present the ideas with the solutions. It's better. And if you can apply the solutions, like creating the systems on middleware or even on game engine, it's better. So other tip that I think useful is you don't need to code, but try at least to learn how the engine works, because when you give some ideas, I think it's better if you know if that idea that we are giving to the developers or the clients, you know that idea works in the game. Because I work with mobile, it's common that a few ideas that we had doesn't work in the game because the technology boundaries that we had. So we need to understand how the game engines work, how the memory budget that we had, the space budget, because it's easier for us to give ideas and create the systems, and the developers start to see us more like a game developer as well, not just audio person that are doing sound for the game. And I think when we start to act and they start to perceive us as a game developer, it's easier for us to have room, and they allow us to have more room to create the system that we want, to apply the sounds, the ideas, create dynamic music that we want. Sometimes they give us more freedom, more time, budget to apply the ideas that we had, and they start to trust on us to create the game that their game. We start to build the game together, not just like outsourcing person that just delivers sounds. It's not mandatory, right? But it's something that I find useful. And when we start to do that, I think working with the clients, working with the developers, we start to be more trustworthy. And I think maintaining that, it's more related to soft skills, and soft skills is hard to teach. Is something that you need to always be improving. But I think that is some things that can help you to be more trustworthy. The first one is be nice. I think it's common that we saw someone that is not that nice, and it's hard to work with that person. So try always to be respectful, be nice, always ask feedback. Questions is very important, because questions is related to the technology that we had, because you need to make questions to understand their game, to present good ideas. And when we start to be more trustworthy, we have more space and room to create better games and better soundscapes. And that's it.
I don't know how this works. I'm guessing. Oh! Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay. He was bang on time. How good is that? I put that too high. That looks silly. Oh, no! I've created my own monster by calling out other people's talks. All right, well, see, that's the halfway point, so it's nice to just have a second to reset your brain. A lot of information is coming at you very quickly, and it's going to again, because now we have David Mason talking about sound design as sonic art.
Hello. All right. Sorry, as I just get comfortable with my place. I have no slides, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of dry music philosophy stuff, so I hope. That's the one laugh I'm going to get. All right. The absolute joy of my work as the audio and musical director for Dredge was finding a way of creating a consistent thematic sonic identity where all of the sounds of the game can be seen as contributing to just this general artistic identity for the soundscape of the game. I studied through to my master's degree in music composition at the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And as a part of my degree, I specialized in both classical chamber and orchestral music, as well as sonic arts. And sonic arts was this form of, for those that don't know, sound composition, focusing on sonic exploration and development of sounds which don't necessarily fall under the general idea of traditional musical instruments. For instance, sonic explorations of field recordings or interactive sound installations. Through this kind of sonic composition, you quickly kind of develop a real appreciation for the inherent beauty of sound on a more microscopic level. And my teacher, John Coulter, often talked about how the quality of art can be seen as its kind of core innovation, which the art piece then kind of develops. And at this level with sound design, there is so much space for innovative sonic exploration, because you can pick any random sound event, from a bird call to the sounds of construction, or like a single note bowed on a violin, and just break that sound down in like a million different ways that nobody else has really done. For Dredge, I wanted every sonic element in the game to have an angle to it, which kind of draws in the player and immerses them in the world and the story. Each sound should develop on the mood and the theme of the game. And this was kind of my highest goal for the audio of Dredge, which was like immersion through the synthesis of all of the sonic elements. So ambience for us was not like it wasn't just a space filler. It wasn't something to just provide the function of providing that realistic thing, but I wanted to treat it as the same artistic intention that you would give to music. And our ambience actually wasn't built how I would usually do it, which would be more of a mix of like randomized sound elements with, looped tracks as well. Everything in Dredge, just because of the challenges that we had, was we were completely working with looped individual tracks for our ambience, which kind of had a nice, it gave us a nice limitation, an interesting challenge to have, because we had to immediately think of the ambience like a music track with its own structure, and it meant that we would treat each sound in that soundscape, from the nature to the fauna, as instruments, essentially. Especially for us, the strange, weirdo birds that we have in New Zealand really meant that like every single bird call was easily seen as like its own instrument. Oyster catchers, for instance, have this really lovely call where one or two of them will start chittering, and then very quickly it dovetails into like this entire like immense chorus of birds, all with their own little staccato motifs that are like coming in and dropping out. And it just has this like perfect sonic structure for like this idea of ambience as a music track. Or we had like the Ruru owl for night times, where it has this very specific rhythmic repeated hooting that's like, you get one hoot every 6 seconds. And it was just like this perfect like little spaced rhythmic timekeeper that you could create a musical track, a musical ambient track out of. We also did this with our character ambience, where we would return to a dock and there would be all these colorful characters that you would talk to, and we'd want to like really build out the ambience of their space. And we did this through the use of just satisfying evocative Foley. Like entering the old antiques trader's house, you'll hear like the rusty old hinges of his door and the creaking of the wood boards, and the scribblings of his notes on his paper, the sounds of a tiny crackling fire in his smoking pipe. And I already have 20 seconds left, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. For developers and audio artists alike, I think it's really worth considering the artistic direction of all of the game's audio, not just in the soundtrack, but all of the elements of sound have this potential for deep sonic exploration, which can really elevate the entire experience. And remember that sound design is not just a functional thing. There is so much potential for artistic and thematic exploration in the world of sound design. Sound design is sonic art. Done.
Good job. I'm so sorry. I should have given you a minute call. But I try to do it between actual sentences. Thank you. All right, now we have Alex and Aniel talking about advice for indie devs.
Hello again. I am Alex from Brave Wave Productions. I'm not actually a music creator. I'm more on the managerial producer side. I did bring slides. I don't know where they are right now, but you're not missing much because it was literally 2 slides. I'm sorry, what? Oh, this? Okay, yeah, so only half of my topic made it onto the list, but advice for indie devs working with game composers from Japan. And I chose this topic because I think it's an interesting one to explore given the audience that's here. Basically, indie dev, small teams, small budgets, has become a big thing over the past decade. And I think, in particular, game composers from Japan are well equipped to work with indie devs from the West, in spite of any communication hurdles there might be with language and whatnot, time zone differences. And the reason I think that is because a lot of senior game composers from Japan, including Shimomura-san, who was here earlier, they started out when the game industry was still new and they were making Famicom games and a lot of the resources and budgets were very limited. They understand what it's like to make games under such constraints. They understand that in indie teams, just as it was back in the day in Japanese game companies, people had to wear a lot of different hats. Shimomura-san said earlier that she had to do all of the sound composition, regardless of whether it was background music or the song itself or voices and whatnot. And I think they understand that a lot of indie devs have to work under such environments as well. And I think from a work ethic standpoint, they're very well equipped to achieve a lot of strong synergies in that context. In terms of how to approach them, I think obviously communication's a big thing, and ideally there will be a Japanese and whatever other language that indie dev speaks. If it's English, then Japanese English speaking project manager who can allow both sides to communicate effectively. Music is a very abstract thing to discuss. I mean, it's kind of global in the sense that everybody likes music, but how people from different places understand music can and do differ, and how those understandings are communicated can be very complicated. I've been doing this for about 9 years, and even I'm still not sure how to explain like certain like requests that developers have that the Japanese composers need to act on. So my strategy for trying to get over those ambiguities are like having musical samples, for example. If you want to work with, for example, Manami Matsumae, who came to highscore 4 years ago, she was a composer of Mega Man. The most effective way to get them to understand what you're trying to achieve is to reference their past work. And like if you want a melody that's very similar, that's something you should bring up. If you're very ambitious, you can take a past song and then put it in a demo and see how it sounds. I've had a few developers do that, and it has made the process a lot easier. One other tip that I have is to kind of give them a lot of autonomy, because I do think that the average indie dev is quite a bit younger than a lot of the composers that I've worked with from the 80s and 90s. And I find that allowing these composers to use their decades of experience to just kind of guide the direction of the music without much, I guess, I don't want to call it interference, because obviously the developers' opinions are very important, but I have noticed a lot of success and like minimal retakes and discarded songs just by letting them use their experience to guide the process forward. I thought you'd never say that. So yeah, and my last piece of feedback I have for indie devs who want to work with composers from Japan, don't hesitate to contact them. They might be well known in game circles, but they're still very humble and nice people. And in my experience, even though it could be a little scary for a Japanese composer to work with developers from outside of Japan, in my experience, both sides have a lot more in common in terms of what they like and what they're looking for. And I've seen some amazing collaborations over the past 10 years. Shimomura-san, who was here earlier, she managed to do a song for Streets of Rage 4 that was developed by a French company, and .mu, and they gave her a lot of autonomy. They said, hey, you're the master, you do what you think is right, and her track was accepted without any revisions whatsoever. And that saves time, it saves money, it helps you get to your goals better, and then there are fewer delays in the process. So yeah, if anyone here works at an indie dev, please, don't hesitate to try using Japanese musical talent in your projects.
If you don't ask, you can't know. All right, we have our last speed run now. Remember, if you want to chuck any questions into Slido, we're going to do a Q&A with all of our lovely speakers at the end. But right now, please welcome Talia Raso with the second most dangerous word, yes.
Hey guys, how great was that? I'm going to try and finish strong. So I'm talking about, we'll get this started, here we go. The second most dangerous word, yes, and finding the learning and the opportunities that present themselves. So, we have. When I was starting out, everyone used to ask me, what kind of sound do you want to make? Where do you want to work in? What do you want to make? Sound for film, TV, games, whatever. And then you look at what you can do, and it's quite a lot. And so whenever anyone would ask me this question, what would I say? Yes. I don't know. We'll look at the next slide. We'll go. The first time, and probably one of the most important times I was asked this question, sorry about that pucker there, was when we had a film come into our Sound Design 101 class. And it was a teacher that was finishing up a film. It was a sci-fi comedy. We were going to get to work on it. And the whole room was a buzz. Everyone was so excited. We didn't know what we were going to get to do, but the film was going to go out and it was going to be funny. It was going to be awesome. So there wasn't much ceremony to the selection process. It was like just put your hand up if you want to work in a particular department. So we put our hands up and pretty much everyone put their hand up before anyone had said anything. Who wants to work in the hard effects team? You know, designing the spacecraft and the weapons and all the hands were up. The students were picked, and then we moved on to Foley, and then we moved on to the next and the next and the next, and then comes up to dialogue editing, and which was met with pretty much the silence I've got from the room right now. People started avoiding eye contact. It was very strange. And clearly the least glamorous task in the team, according to my peers. At this point, my hand was still up. So I did go on to sound design that film. And the reason being is because at the time, I just started reading this book right here, where one of our leading minds of the field was stating that the dialogue editor in a Hollywood sound team was the most experienced member of the team. They had trained their ears for decades to utilize, edit, and correct sounds that our brains have evolved to prioritize, to decipher as quickly as possible, and that couldn't really hide behind abstraction or obscurity. So often the forefront of many storytelling mediums for the longest amount of time. And you know, you can kind of tell, right, when the dialogue in a film is slightly off, people tend to notice. So I did say yes to dialogue editing that film. I had no idea how. I'd never done it before, but I knew there was a lesson to be learnt there. I knew that it was vital that I had that skill to take recordings from all angles, directions, mics, locations, and different times of day, of the same day, and create an illusion that that moment that they were watching was real, cohesive, and captivating in that time. So this ended up leading me to work with a sound designer who was absolutely incredible and taught me everything that they knew about dialogue editing, and I continued to work with them on other films. Did I want to be a dialogue editor forever? No. Dialogue editing was fun, it was great, it was awesome. But no, I didn't want to be a dialogue editor forever. But what I did want was to be a sound designer forever, and to be a bloody good one. And I recognised that the way to get there would be to immerse myself in as many different roles, gain as many different skills, and create as many different contacts as possible. Because I realised that the role of the sound designer can only really exist within a team. Whether on a feature film, a documentary, an ad, or a video game, you have to be within the team. And what I realised is that to be as valuable as possible, sorry, I'm a bit nervous, to those teams, I needed to train my ears. And dialogue editing was going to be the easiest and the quickest way for me to do that. So this speech isn't about getting lucky and doing 1,000 free jobs until finally somebody decided to pay me. This is a speech about finding the lessons and therein the opportunities. Awesome. So I dialogue edited, lots. And then I designed backgrounds and Foley and UI and just kept finding more and more opportunities off the back of other opportunities that meant that I was training different aspects of designing and different aspects of collaborating and working in these teams. And each of these projects, I looked to learn something new, to push my boundaries and to further train my skills. Because as a professional, we can never really know everything, because that is a dangerous mindset. It was so important that no matter how small the project or the role it may be, to look for a positive learning experience in each hour that I was working and each sound that we were designing. And so then I applied at Playside, and they said no. But what they did say was everything that I didn't know. And so I spent the time going to learn everything that I didn't know. I needed game experience, so I went out seeking. It was Global Game Jam. I signed up. I had no idea what I was doing and never done one before. Put my hand up, like just back in class. I was like, hey guys, who needs a sound designer? That's the end of my talk. All right, rushing through the end. 6 months later, I applied. I got the job. Woo! That's our team. All right, every man and their dog's going to tell you to work a lot, to get quicker, to work harder, to hustle, to grind, for experience, for exposure bucks. But what I'm saying is to work for skills. The mindset you need to be in is that you're working towards a broader goal. There are many ways to get there. You will make the most valuable. You the most valuable is not necessarily knowing everything, but having the willingness to learn. And this is me.
And I'm going to invite all of our speakers up now, and I'm going to give you microphones. I think 2 of you may have to share. Or no, more than that. I can't do maths. I'm good at a lot of other things, but not maths. Okay. While we're getting up, I'm going to start with you, Talia, and I'm going to ask you a question. What's the first most dangerous word?
No.
Oh, okay.
If you get given an opportunity, the only way that you're not going to get anything from it is to say no. If you say yes, we could get into a whole talk about saying yes to too many things, but that's a completely different talk.
All right. Ben, controversial question.
Hello.
Name
Yes.
3 bad instruments. Go on. Insult some people.
My wife's student violin, a piece of steel wire in my shed, and
That one actually made my ears
the
hurt thinking
spokes,
about it.
my bicycle spokes.
Elaborate.
I needed a cartoon putt-putt engine, so I recorded myself hitting a wooden spoon on my bike.
Ingenuity. We love to see it.
Just be silly. Just be silly. It's fun.
Fernando, how do you help devs talk about sound well?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Is how I chat with devs about the sound?
Yeah, how do you help devs communicate about sound effectively?
I think it depends on the developer that we are working on and how experienced that developers are in audio production. But I think that showing examples is the best way to communicate with the developers, and when they start to understand how the dynamic system works or what we are planning to do, I think it's easier for them to help you and create the systems, or at least giving a direction about what you are planning to do. And I think creating these examples can be just a video and create the systems on creating a linear video, or if you know how to do a middleware or other tools, apply that on the tool and present them, showing how that works, and maybe that can help you and then to understand more about how audio works. But that's depend on how experienced the developer is with audio.
I should also say, if anyone else up on stage has anything to add to any of these questions, please feel free to, because you are all founts of knowledge. With that, I'm going to give a slight pause in case anyone wants to say anything. Okay, moving on to the next question. David, what is the power of using recognizable sounds, for example, birds, waves, versus unrecognizable sounds, such as modular synthesizers, randomizers, waveforms, etc.?
Well, this is part of something that I didn't get around to talking about, so I'm glad that I can talk about it now. But something that I really loved doing for Dredge, and I want to do way more, is that when it came to doing the cosmic horror of Dredge, we then got to be like, well, we have this body of sounds from what we've created for the wildlife and for the ambience of the game, and that's what's colored these areas. And we have this one big monster for that area that is this unfathomable beast, and we would just use that sound set that we had created and warp it and mess with it, and then bring in our like synthesis skills into the play to make something that's really unknowable and evil out of that. And it was a way of bringing everything, keeping everything, synced into that same soundscape. Yeah.
Can I add
oh,
a
yes.
quick one on that, Rad?
Please do.
When you use a recognizable sound, like particularly with birds or insects, you can really hijack into people's memories and nostalgia. So if you play a bird sound from New Zealand, you can transport someone to that place really quickly, and it's like an emotional shortcut.
This is perfect to lead into our next question, and David, I'm so sorry to ask this, but what's your best New Zealand bird impression? This one was sent in anonymously as well, which I love. Would it help you if I did a bird impression? I don't know why I offered that. I don't have any bird impressions. I just wanted to be helpful, and now I'm taking it back.
Let me see if I can do my best. Oh shoot, I can't remember. I believe this is the kokako. Because they do this thing where they like, I'm going to be so sad if it's not the kokako. There's a lot of birds that get mixed up in my head. But if I'm right, the kokako is the bird that it digs like a little burrow and it like puts its tummy in there. Because it just kind of like inflates its belly to make this really bassy sound. And I don't know if I can do this. It sounds like...
Where else other than highscore can you get this kind of content? Anyone else got other bird impressions they want to give us? From the crowd even, I'll take them. No, you have to say what bird it is. You can't just start making noises. I can do the magpie from Bananas in Pajamas, which is just a woman making magpie noises, and she's like, all right, Alex, what opportunities do you think there are for Japanese and Australian composers / sound designers to collaborate?
Japanese
You're over there.
and Australian, both sides are sound people, or is one side an indie dev?
It doesn't say, so you
I
can
see.
answer however you like.
That's a great question. I mean, collaborations can take a lot of different forms, and I think that's ultimately like up to both sound designers to try to figure out what makes sense for them. I mean, it's irrespective of where the composers come from. A lot of Japanese composers do have a pedigree in certain games, and so at Brave Wave, what we've done over the past 10 years is have them work with younger Western game music composers or performers, and then they kind of combine their strengths, right? Like if the Japanese composer's strength is in melodies, for example, and the Westerners' strengths are in performing or like in a certain instrument, for example, then like I've seen some amazing collaborations that kind of harken back to that sound that the Japanese composer is known for, but like a lot of young people have access to great tools and a lot of like technology and full-fledged studios that weren't easily accessible 30 years ago, and like just if they focus on combining their strengths, like they don't even have to be in the same country or in the same place, but I do think a lot of great collaborations have been born from that kind of approach.
Broghan, what's the most absurdly successful lyric / line you've come up with using your working title method?
Did you write this, Jade? No.
It was from Mina, who I can't see, but somewhere.
The most successful one that I've come up with, well, I suppose I'd have to pick the most successful tune, which was probably Nails, the theme tune from Into the Dead 2, if any of you guys have played that game, which centered a lot around American Midwest-style country music and had a lot of metaphor and things in it. But the line for the chorus was, nails in the churches, nails in the dust, nails in their coffins, in peace we may rust.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the working title was that was pulled from, or was it just
Nails.
Just nails?
Yep, just nails. Just nails. And that's what we got out of it.
Nails Whomping Bass 3.
Nails Fat Whomping Bass 2.
Talia, what's the dream project you'd like to say yes to?
A project that I have no idea what sound I would make first up. So it would be something that just doesn't doesn't inspire anything first up, that would be the best project. Sorry, weird answer.
Why do you want to hurt yourself like that?
Good point.
I'm going to take that as I love a challenge, so that's great. David, did you ever go too far with noises or non-traditional musical sounds in the soundtrack and get told to rein it in?
Can you repeat that one?
Yes, when I find it again, because I archived it. Okay, did you ever go too far with noises or non-traditional music sounds in the soundtrack and then get told to rein it in?
Yeah, I feel like I've managed to sneak in some stuff. I don't know, like especially because again, so talking from experience of working on Dredge, those guys are like just so amazing with like, I would like recently, just trying to think if I shouldn't talk about this. But it was just an experience where I maybe made a little bit too much music. I like made a bunch of extra tracks and then realized once I'd done it, like, wait, we had it like talked about this. Like, you should do that. You should definitely be like, I'm going to do this. Are you okay with it? Okay, cool. And it's all mutual. But yeah, I just did that. And then I was like, shoot. So I like told them like, if you want to like take the tracks and like see if they work before we like do anything beyond this. But they were just like, oh, that sounds good. We'll chuck it in. It was like, oh, okay, cool, awesome. So yeah, and I guess that just speaks to it's nice to have like that kind of working relationship where there's just so much trust with like. They're pretty happy for me to just go away and do whatever weird stuff I want to do. Yeah.
Indeed. And I was going to say, Fernando, do you want to add anything to that kind of trust element? Only if you want to.
Yeah. No, as I said, I think when we have trust with developers, we have more room to apply and test something. Actually, we are working on a game that we might release next year, I hope. And I think we passed the same process, like we create a lot of things and without asking them. But the idea was because the project is so nice for us that we are thinking, let's push a little bit and see what we can do with that. They don't ask that, but it's a good project. It's Skin, the name of the project. And when you present to them, we work with them a few years. The project is ongoing a few years, and then they have this trust on us. So they like, it's incredible. Do what you want. We trust on you, and you can just do what you think that works on the game. But that was the first time that we present that in the game, in the project. So it was like, we passed that boundaries that we can. We have a space to do what we felt that it's good and that we felt that works for the project. Yeah.
This one is not a question, but Kaylin would like Ben to know that they sampled a ceiling fan once for a melody instrument, which is going to prompt me to ask a question. I want each of you to tell me what the weirdest thing you've sampled to make a piece of music is, if there is one. Is the bike spokes the weirdest, do you reckon?
Well, the spokes is more of a sound design, so I'm trying to think of a musical one. But I think just doing weird stuff with your own voice can go really far. Like, it's a sound that humans are so designed. I mean, someone else was that the voice, and then if you manipulate that or do strange things with it, it can really mess with your head. So that's always fun.
Yeah, I think I have the same experience. We are working on a game that it's Zuba, the name of the game. It's a mobile game it's a MOBA game for mobile, and we create the theme of that game with only voices because it's Halloween and we are like acting as monsters. And it was a very fun experience because later some people of the company like, oh, it's your voice in there, and it's different. So I think that was my experience that is a little different.
I like using fruit for gore noises.
Yes.
That's not what I thought we were going to hear today.
I once told the CEO of my company that a watermelon makes the most realistic human head splatter sound, and he looked at me real weird.
I'm afraid to ask this question. Have you heard a real human head?
No, I
Thank
haven't.
God.
No, I
Okay.
haven't, but I imagine that it's
Yeah.
the same ratio of like hardness to squishiness, right? So it's kind of
Yes.
yeah.
And shell and
Sorry, it's a
composition.
bit brutal. I made it dark. But probably the weirdest one was an explosion noise that out of some keys, paper, various rustling, like just stuff you can find on your desk. Really.
How?
Yeah. Well, if you kind of understand the basics of like manipulating noises using EQ, changing the pitch, a low pass, high pass, etc. Like once you get all those skills under your belt, you can make a lot of tunes out of basically anything, and sounds out of basically anything, and components of other sounds. If you really don't want to wait around for it to rain outside, maybe frying bacon with a filter on it will do. For recording stuff. So yeah, be creative with how you think about using different bits of the sounds and the frequency ranges.
Delicious. Talia, how do you know when you are saying yes to too much and going off track? How do you discern what could be good for your career and what couldn't?
So if you can identify early on that there's something that you can learn from the experience, then that's probably one to consider keeping in the bag. Time management is obviously like the first thing to try and learn, I would say. Be a freelancer for a month and you'll learn that very quickly. So I think if you've got the time to take on a project that is exciting you, that is aligned with your values, then I'd probably keep that in the list. But you really have to just weigh up, like, when are they going to get you the files? Like, will you have the time to give it your all? Because it might be the most incredible project, but you just can't get it done, and that can sometimes be soul-crushing. So.
Alex, tell us a few more successful collaborations between indie developers and Japanese composers with Brave Wave or other companies in recent years.
Yeah, the aforementioned Streets of Rage 4, .mu, the French developer, like we managed to gather Yuzo Koshiro and Motohiro Kawashima, the original Streets of Rage 1 through 3 composers. We brought on Keiji Yamagishi, who did Ninja Gaiden, and Shimomura-san did a track as well. That was an unbelievable collaboration. Another one of my favorite companies to work with is Way Forward. They're based in LA, and they're known for the Shantae games and a lot of other collaborations with companies like Konami and Capcom. I've done a few projects with them using my developers. They developed a dinosaur side-scrolling game a few years ago called Spider Swords, and we used the composer for Tomba, Harumi Fujita, on that project. So there's a lot of like interesting collaborations. There actually is one that I can't talk about today, unfortunately. I really wish I could. It's a big one. I think people will be very excited when we're able to talk more about it. But it's definitely one of those big old school Japanese IPs with talent you wouldn't believe is on it. So yeah, there's plenty. Can't talk about it all, but yeah, just maybe some listeners can help make the next one.
Where should people keep watching to get news of that project when it eventually comes out?
Brave Wave has a Twitter account, and I have my own personal Twitter, and it's definitely something I post about when the time comes.
There you go. All right. Broghan, what are some of your favorite lyrics from your own work?
My favorite lyrics from my own work. Oh,
And then your favorite Taylor Swift lyric. I don't know, whatever.
absolutely brutal question. Favorite lyrics from my own work. Oh, I'm not really sure. Eh? Like I've written so many things, I just can't think of any off the top of my scone. I'm gonna go with the Nails one. That was one where I got to get kind of like heavily metaphorical on it, which was quite fun, and which I do enjoy doing, using lots of interesting poetic language, I suppose. Anything I can be a bit poetic with is usually my favorite. Yeah.
Do you like to harness any kind of emo kid energy when you're writing lyrics as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a electro rock originals band, so totally. Yep, 100%.
How did each of you get your first gig? We'll go down the line. We'll start with you, Broghan.
I was 14, and it was a covers band, and I was a vocalist, and they didn't have anyone else. And it was a pub, and I wasn't allowed to play in a pub, because I was 14, so they just put some little road cones around me and said, this is a liquor-free area. And if that happens to you, like when you're a young teenager as well, like just don't be a dick, don't go up to the bar and try and get beers or whatever, and just be, professional, and you'll get more gigs in the future. They'll ask you back, so Yeah.
Stay in the cone zone.
Yeah, stay in the cone zone.
I got really inspired by FTL, Faster Than Lights soundtrack by Ben Prunty. So as a kid, I was always wanting to compose video game music. Went into the classical music scene. That wasn't working out for me so much at the time, and then I tried to go into production and sound engineering, and that was really fun until it became a job, and then I really didn't want to do it anymore. And so just very luckily, it was right when COVID was kicking off and it was in lockdown. A friend of a friend knew someone who was looking for music for like an anime, like action style hack and slasher called Denari, which is still in production at the moment. It's at PAX if you want to play it. We're testing. And it was just like this opportunity for me to finally put these skills to use, and and then things led from there.
The first one that I work on, I was in college and I saw a EGN article about a fun game about Halo. It's called the Project Contingency at the time, and I was a huge fan of Halo series, and I sent an email like, I can try to make music for our project, and they like, yeah, do some track and let's see what happens. And I do a track that I sent to them, and they like it. So I think we worked together in a few projects later on. One was Hide or Die, a horror game later. But I think start on this fun project, Halo fun project. Yeah.
So my first game job was the one that you saw in the slide, but my first job getting into the industry was probably, I convinced my parents that it would be really educational if I sold merch for my guitar teacher's band. And I was also underage, so 17. I don't know how I convinced everybody that this was like a great idea. But yeah, I started selling their merch and skirting around gigs in Melbourne.
Did you get put in a cone zone?
No, no one knew.
Oh.
I started getting everyone's drink cards, actually.
As far as game music goes, this actually picks up from the last question that was asked, but my first Brave Wave job was to connect the composer of Mega Man, Manami Matsumae, to Yacht Club Games, the developer of Shovel Knight. At the time, they'd had a Kickstarter going on, and although the Kickstarter was inevitably going to be very successful, my business partner and I recommended that we connect Matsumae-san with the Yacht Club developers for a 1 or 2 track collaboration, because they were going for a Mega Man-esque game. Like Shovel Knight looks like an NES game in a lot of ways, and it sounds like one. So why not connect Jake Kaufman, the composer of that game, the main composer, with Manami Matsumae? So we did that, and I think that was one of their biggest days on that Kickstarter. This was back in 2013. So yeah, I was the coordinator. I did all the translating and the coordination between Matsumae-san and the developers. Very successful collaboration. 2 of the best Shovel Knight songs are by her. So yeah, that's kind of how we got our start, and here we are today.
My first games gig came about by trawling through Vic Screen funding approvals and
Oh, that's a good tip.
just going deep on Twitter accounts. Like if it was a studio that got funding, I'll just cross it off because they probably knew a composer. But if it was an individual developer, I would find their Twitter, and then if it was early development and there was no music, and like, as in, don't do Dynac, do you need a composer? Research and find a game that's early enough that doesn't have someone there, and then explain in really clear detail why you're going to help them out and what you have to contribute. And that actually worked. So yeah, cold email.
I don't know what people are going to do now that Twitter/X is planning on bringing in that.
But-
no one's paying for it.
Well, let me add the caveat that composers cold emailing game devs is actually a meme. So be very thorough and find the person that's actually going to benefit from hearing from you.
I mean, we cold emailed Yacht Club. It's like, hey, you want the composer of Mega Man in your project?
Yeah, but you had the composer of Mega Man. Like,
Yeah, that's kind of cheating, but hey.
hey, do you
It
guys
was
want
still-
Beyonce?
it was still a
like,
cold email.
come on. All right, well, that wraps up Speedruns. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing.